West Side Story was a very integral part of my upbringing. It was the first time I'd ever seen my culture represented in any way on screen. I played Maria on stage when I was 16, and I had such an interesting experience doing that on stage that I almost didn't send in my tape for this film because I felt so oversaturated with West Side Story, and I'm so glad that I did. Obviously, I wouldn't be sitting here today
I'm
if
so
I
glad
didn't.
that you did. I've never made a musical before, and I wanted people who have been on the boards. I have not been on the board since I was the stage manager of Arsenic and Old Lace as a sophomore in high school, and I think it was the best choice I could make was bringing myself to theater, not asking theater to come to me.
You know, I wake up to everything I know either getting sold or wrecked or being taken over by people that I don't like.
Honestly, I've never worked in a project where everyone was putting this much love into it and so happy to be there. No one was ever complaining about being on set with Steven.
And the theater community aspect of it all is just like icing on the cake, man. All my buddies that have been doing this, you know, for like a decade or so, it's like, hey, let's go do this other thing together. And like, it's like camp is what it was, man. It was great.
Steven Spielberg made a speech about Sondheim and the genius of that man.
So I caught myself watching Steve's expression, sometimes more than the actors, because they perfectly reflected what everyone was doing. Listening with his eyes closed, he'd sway, he'd swoon, or he'd grimace and flinch.
I remember when Ariana and I did our first pass of A Boy Like That, I Have a Love in the studio. He left after our first pass, and when we passed him on the stage, she was like, "Don't listen to a word he says." And we came in and you were like, he said it was so good he didn't have to stay any longer.
That's true.
And that was, I mean, I know for Ari and I, that was the most like, woo moment.
If you go with him, no one will ever forgive you.
Steve and I became friends on West Side Story, but we became really good friends during the pandemic, recommending films for each other to see, and basically Steve telling me things about the sixth cast member in the deep backfield of a cast, who the person was, who the person got married to, how long the career lasted, his ability to retain a card catalog of every single movie that he's ever seen from the 30s, 40s, 50s, and parts of the 60s. And not just American film, I'm talking about international film. We hit it off.
Thank you, Steve, for the hat. We all miss you.